Hi everyone and welcome to the show. My name is Rebecca Collin and this is Food for Thought, where we serve you a tantalising blend of memories, flavours and heartwarming connections. From the nostalgic comfort of a parent's home cooking to those fancy meals with a special someone or a particularly good late night kebab, every meal is a unique chapter in our lives. So let's bite into some of those irresistible dishes. Tonight's episode is a flavour-packed extravaganza with our two special guests. First, we'll have a wee bit of banter with the lovely Dan Stewart. Scottish-born Dan is an engineer by day and a creative home cook who shines a light on wonderful tasting food. We'll be asking Dan to concoct his very own dream menu made up of his ideal entree, main and dessert. Later on, the feast continues with the cowboy of the hour, Axel Carrington. Axel is coming in to perform a song from his newest album. You're in for such a treat. Let's get on with Food for Thought. Get that table set as we get ready to bring out our first guest, Dan.
So coming from Scotland, we've got some really amazing kind of food, kind of produce and stuff, but Scottish recipes are really quite boring because I have too many ideas. That's one of my favourite things about living in this part of the world is there's so much food brought from so many different people. So many ingredients that you can get, but it's about where the food comes from and like the story of why people cook that way from that place.
Here to fill your bellies and your ears with the decadent menu that he's dreamt up, it's Dan Stewart. Dan, hello, welcome. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. So before we get into your dream menu, let's talk about you a bit. So you were born in Scotland, now you've been living in Perth for 12 years with your wife and your cat.
And my cat, yes.
Very important, always the most important member of a household.
Yes, the boss.
Definitely the real boss. So what got you into cooking for the first time ever? What was that like for you finding that?
So the first time I really remember doing anything sort of myself from a cooking point of view, I had an Asterix the Gaul cookbook that my mum had bought me, and I was about 7 and I planned a menu out of the Asterix cookbook, and my mum helped me cook that. But then I didn't really do anything for a long time after that until I moved out of home and realised that if I wanted good food, my mum wasn't there to cook it for me anymore. So I had to learn to cook myself. So
yeah,
lots of phone calls
to mum.
realization.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, I can imagine. No, I was very lucky. My mum is also an incredible home cook. So yeah, moving out of home for me was also a bit of a, oh no.
Yeah.
How am I going to feed myself?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very much like that. Do you have a favourite dish to cook at home right now?
Oh, it changes all the time, but I love anything that's got loads of flavour. So loads of spices. I've got a massive spice drawer that I designed when we got the kitchen done specifically because I have a big collection. So yeah, anything spicy.
What's your favourite spice to use?
Cumin.
Cumin?
Yes.
Wow.
Yep.
Interesting choice. It's a good flavour. It's a bold flavour. I like it.
Yeah. Used a lot. And in lots of different cuisines as well. So
yeah,
maybe that's why I
it
chose it.
shows up a lot of different times. That's probably good. It's very versatile.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've travelled around a lot and now you've been living in Perth for a while. But in your travels, is there anything you've come across that's really kind of changed your perception of a particular cuisine or how you use different ingredients?
Yeah, I think I spent a lot of time working in Malaysia. I was there for almost 2 years on and off, and a good friend of mine who's a Malaysian guy from Perth found an article that had 100 different things you had to try when you were in Malaysia, and he made it his mission to get me through as many of them as possible. So yeah, I got to 67 out of the 100, which is pretty good.
That's not bad. That's a pass. That's a definite strong pass.
It's a definite pass. But yeah, it was just loads of fun to experience as much of a nation's food as possible.
Yeah, totally. I get that. What particular ingredient do you think you came across that was the most special to be working with?
In Malaysia?
In Malaysia, yeah.
I think that was the first time I came across proper tamarind, like tamarind, the fruit, I guess, as
Yeah.
opposed to tamarind out of a jar.
Out of a jar. It's so different, isn't
really
it?
different.
No, fresh spices versus powdered. You're
Yeah.
never going to get quite the same thing, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
So did you then go through that whole process of like preparing the tamarind to then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done that a few times. Not every time, but yeah,
No.
the jar's still pretty good.
That's fair enough. It's like the garlic versus garlic debate, you know.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm definitely firmly on the garlic side of that
Firmly on
debate.
the garlic side of that? Oh no, I
Yep.
won't tell you where I stand then.
Shocking.
So what do you think is the like funniest experience you've had around food?
The funniest experience I've had was a friend of mine decided that we should open a chicken wing stall.
Oh.
So we ran a chicken wing stall at the food markets, the Twilight markets in just near here in
Yeah.
the centre of Perth, and we received a delivery of 200 kilos of chicken wings, which is a lot of chicken wings,
Yeah.
but they were frozen. So we had rented a restaurant and we ended up covering every surface in the restaurant with chicken wings thawing
Oh no.
while we were batch cooking them. So yeah, that was pretty funny.
Oh, that is quite an image. That
That
is
was a
quite an
sight,
image.
yeah.
I love that. Yeah, no, I spend a lot of time working with chicken wings and
Yes.
they're not the most fun thing to prepare, are they?
No.
Very fiddly.
Yes.
Very fiddly as a chicken wing, and I imagine being frozen, it's not much better.
No, it didn't help us cook them. So yeah.
So when we were speaking before, you know, every now and then you'll be having to do a lot of travel for work, you'll kind of have to be up for really long hours. What do you think is your ultimate comfort meal when you finally get back home and have some time?
Wow. So honestly, just something home cooked, something that
Yeah.
I've cooked. I really like just getting home and getting back into the kitchen, and it doesn't need to be anything fancy,
No.
just a bowl of pasta or something like that,
Yeah.
but not prepared by a restaurant chef somewhere.
Yeah,
That gets a
right.
bit tiring after a while when you're away for work.
Wow. Yeah, I suppose it makes sense that, you know, having something home cooked. But what a problem to have. Too many chefs are cooking me food.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not a great soundbite.
No, no, sorry, I promise we won't take that out of context. So when you take inspiration from different things, obviously we've talked about how ingredients can inspire you. Do you have a particular favourite chef or cook that you go to?
Yeah. There's a guy called Yotam Motalengi, and him
Yeah.
and his whole team are just awesome.
Yeah.
Do you know the
I'm
Test
familiar
Kitchen?
with
Yeah.
Ottolenghi, yes.
Yep.
Oh,
So-
phenomenal stuff.
I have a whole bunch of their books, and I was sat on a plane today watching YouTube clips of their his team cooking, and yeah,
Oh, I
I'm a
love
bit
a test
obsessed.
kitchen. I love a
Yeah.
test kitchen video.
Really good.
I remember back around the pandemic, something I found a lot of comfort in was test kitchen videos.
Yeah.
Especially the Bon Appetit test kitchen was
Yeah.
a really good one. It's very fun to do that. Or New York Times do a really great one as well. Do you
Yeah.
watch them very often?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, really good. An inspiration, and yeah.
Yeah. It's
I
nice to
can see
see
that.
that, when you're in a kitchen, it's okay to experiment. And even these professionals are like, oh, I'm not sure what I'm doing in this moment, but we're going to
Yeah.
figure it out. It's a really nice
Absolutely.
thing to be able to relate to that.
Yeah, lots of people talk about food rules and you have to cook certain things certain ways, but Ottolenghi in particular, yeah, they mix and match so many different things
So
and
many
cuisines
things,
and whatever.
totally.
Yeah.
Well, we've run out of time for our first little chat, but don't you worry, we'll be back again with you, Dan. First, we're going to take a little break to hear before we hear about your dream menu. Let's take a look at the great spot for food that we've found locally in Perth, in the suburb of Mount Lawley. welcome back. Now we're all getting hungry. Dan, have you been to local anaesthetic?
I haven't. I've been past a lot, but I'm going to have to go in now.
You're going to have to, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So let's talk about Dan's dream menu. We've asked Dan to spend a little bit of time thinking about what his ultimate 3-course meal he would love to have cooked for him would be. Great, so Dan, let's start with some of the important context for a meal.
Mm-hmm.
Where would you be eating this meal?
I've kind of cheated, and I'm going to be maybe in 3 different places, one for each course.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm excited to delve into what those are going to be.
Yeah.
And would there be someone particular with you to be eating all of these meals, or are you going to just sit and...
My wife Hannah is always there.
Yeah.
Of course.
Lovely.
Yep.
So, entree, our first meal, step of the meal. Whereabouts would you be for that one?
For that one, I would just need to be near water. It's particularly the coast. So the first course that I would love to have cooked for me is just the freshest seafood cooked over a charcoal barbecue. Just really simple, but ideally caught over there and cooked over there.
Yeah, delicious. Oh, nothing beats fresh seafood when it's done right. Is there a particular kind of seafood that you would be wanting to eat?
I was struggling to narrow it down, so it would have to be a few different bits and pieces, but like an awesome piece of fish. Like I love Spanish mackerel. It's really good, and that barbecued is awesome. Or some shellfish, or like whole prawns done open on the barbecue. Yeah,
butterfly
a selection.
Prawns. Delicious.
Yes, so I'm not going to commit to one.
Yeah, can't limit yourself when it comes to seafood. Just
Absolutely
anything
not.
you can catch right next to me, I'll take.
Yeah. Ideally, someone else has to do the catching as well. I'm a terrible fisherman, so.
That's absolutely fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, this is a dream menu to have cooked for you, so I can't imagine that doing the fishing would be part of the experience. No, not for us.
No.
And would there be anything accompanying this, or just pure fresh seafood?
Probably, like just something really simple, like a garlic butter or a spiced butter or something.
Classic.
Yeah.
Can't go wrong with a bit of garlic on prawns.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so we've had our seafood entree by a beautiful coastline. Where are we going for the main course?
My mum's house. So with Christmas coming up, we so when I first moved to Australia, that was kind of when I felt maybe the most homesick, was around Christmas, because winter Christmas versus summer Christmas
Very
is
different
very
experiences.
different.
Yeah.
Both amazing, but it took me a while to feel like Aussie Christmas was Christmas.
Yeah.
And so our traditional Christmas dinner at home was always a turkey with everything else, which was fine, but Mum hated cooking it and didn't really enjoy eating it, but it was what we always asked her to do. But over here it didn't work. I did cook a full Christmas dinner once in Brisbane in 35-degree heat, and it was awful.
What?
It's not what you want to eat. So we kind of invented our own new tradition. We cooked a porchetta here together when my mum was over to visit. And now she cooks that at home in Scotland as well. So we do it kind of differently. I do it on the barbecue and she uses an oven, and I'll have it with salads, and she'll cook sort of more roast veggie kind of typical sides.
Yeah.
But it's like a shared tradition that sort of bridges the hot Christmas, cold Christmas gap. So that's really good.
Lovely. Oh, wonderful.
Plus leftovers.
Oh, most important part of any meal.
Absolutely.
Well, that's a lovely, comforting main. Where are we going for dessert?
So this one is a bit indulgent, but decided...
As dessert should be.
Absolutely. And if it's your dream menu, it needs to be a pretty epic dessert. So this one would be cooked by a proper pastry chef, because they do a much better job than a home cook's ever going to do. But we went to Benelong, which is Peter Gilmore's restaurant in the Sydney Opera House, and it's amazing and everyone should go. This epic view out of the Opera House across the harbour and Sydney, and they do a pavlova, but it's not a typical pavlova. It's just this stunning meringue construction that looks like the Opera House, and it's amazing. So I picked that one just because it's wedged in my brain as an amazing dessert in an amazing location. So,
Yeah, that's fair enough. No, I can imagine that building one of those and having it not collapse on you, that takes a lot of skill.
Yes.
Takes a lot of skill. You've got to go to the professionals for that one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that sounds delicious. Well, Dan, thank you so much for making the time to come in this evening. I'd really love to sit down with you and be able to eat some of the delicious food it sounds like you'd be making. Next up, we have our potluck series, a fun behind-the-scenes look into people coming together to share a meal that means something to them. Do they embrace the effort or risk a flop dish? And what does everyone learn about each other? Let's take a look.
I think having everybody around to do potluck at my house is a nice opportunity to spend it with friends from uni and get to know each other a little bit better.
How do you like my food?
Oh, I always like your food.
Potlucks are meant to be fun.
Having that nice fun group eating experience and everyone's food, really, really good.
I think when there's effort that's gone into the food and the preparation, people are more willing to share a bit more of themselves as well. So I made a eaten mess mixed with a trifle.
I brought a shakshuka.
I bring the ceviche.
I bought tteokbokki, or otherwise known as spicy Korean rice cake.
I bring mee goreng, but this is not like the instant noodle that we usually eat, but this is like the real version of mee goreng. So this is like very special, like noodle from Indonesia.
When you're talking the mee goreng, it's like reminds me of the noodles. We do
Yes.
also eat the noodles in China for the birthday. So like,
Oh, same. Yeah, actually, it's like back time in the history, Chinese came to Indonesia and then bring that history.
yeah.
So we met.
Yeah. So
back time.
it's like the food to be more about, the
Like-
backgrounds, and it's just like what's happening for that.
Something that meant something to me or had some kind of story behind it. My partner's friend group has this annual activity. They go down south all together, and one year I got invited along, and we all kind of took shifts in groups cooking each night, and my mate made this really good shakshuka. It was the first time I ever tried it, and we just sat around this really big table and we just chatted and ate this really good food, and I just remember feeling like really, I don't know, happy and at home. I remember that time, and I remember how lucky I am to have really cool friends that get me, that I can just like sit around a big table and tell very terrible jokes to.
I really love getting together with friends, and because I've lived away from home for so long, I've been able to start new traditions around the table. It's about spending more time sourcing the produce, getting the right things that you want to put in it. I just think there's a nice way to have summery food.
Food is amazing to tell, like unite people.
And she's yelling at me. She's like, why the fuck do you want to shove your hand in the sauce? It's hot. We have boiled it. I don't really cook. I had a friend try to teach me over the phone. It is chaotic as it sounds. I'm over here banging pots and pans, crashing dishes, or yelling at each other, but it is a good time because we keep laughing to the point where we have like tears in our eyes. And it was just like a great moment because we just enjoy friendship stupidity. There are a lot of simple dishes out there. You can microwave something or throw shit in a bowl, call it a day. It might be bad, but if you create a memory off that, good for you.
There's something that comes with a meal that often conversation around the table or seated together around a meal is more in depth than just your standard personal conversations.
Do you want to give a rate for my food?
Yeah. Okay, 10.
Very nice.
Yeah, I am.
I'll give you 10 too.
I love being able to like talk about different subjects together while we were around the table. We were talking about like family, and we got pretty deep into conversation about trauma as well. It's like a lot of things can happen over a table of friends.
Having you guys all around, everyone should be very proud of what they brought.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks so much for having us.
Really enjoyed it.
Bye.
Thanks, so nice to meet you, Emily. See you, Cynthia. Bye. Thank fuck they're gone.
That reminds me of when my school friends and I used to make waffles together on the weekends. There's nothing more special than sharing an experience around food, I think. Next up, the talented Axel Carrington is here on Food for Thought to serenade you with a lovely post-dinner ditty. Please welcome Axel to the show.
Hello, and welcome to Cowboy. Hey, here is some food for thought. Did you know that a cowboy's favourite ride is the next one? I've been lonesome, cowboy, riding low, wondering, no heart to call a home. Sometimes we ride, just forgetting to find the light. I've tried to keep warm the embers, dying slow, wondering, is the saddle up really worth the fall down? Sometimes you ride, just for riding. Sometimes we ride, just to find them. But all these blades stretch wide. The yearning doesn't subside. The yearning pays no mind. I've been told the violent buried away, sundering. This trail is just my bones, you say. Sometimes we ride, just fixing to survive. Now there is just nights, the wind shadow up on high. You hang on every breath, you're embracing every step. This longing keeps the map in the hand and leaves your prints in my sands. Well, sometimes we ride, eyes on someone else's life. Sometimes I ride, not realizing I'm but dust behind them. But all these plains stretch wide. The yearning doesn't subside. The yearning pays no mind. Just to have your one heart to abide. Hey, try to take this in your stride. Now, take your paces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16,
Wow. Axel Carrington, everyone. That was the amazing title track from Axel's 5th solo album, Cowboy, available on Spotify and Bandcamp. For our interstate viewers, you can catch Axel over at the Retreat Hotel in Brunswick this Sunday, November 26th. I'm very jealous that he's not going to be doing anything else for us in Perth. It's been a pleasure having you at Food for Thought at the table this evening. I've loved chatting with Dan Stewart. I loved hearing about what he had to say about the inspiration we can take from other people and of other ingredients that we might not be familiar with. And his dream menu wasn't just about the food. Each course was a story in itself and left me incredibly hungry. Thanks so much for watching the show, and a shout out to the wonderful Axel Carrington and to Liam and the team from Local Anaesthetic in Mount Lawley. We can't thank you enough for making this episode a memorable one. We've loved having you, our audience, here with us today. Thanks for keeping and showing us something that we can, make sure we're entertaining you. I'm Rebecca Collin, and I'm starving. See you next week. Good night.